Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive into something pretty crucial for any coder out there, no matter your level. We're talking feedback loops. And to guide us, we've got this awesome article from the Algo Academy blog.
You know, what's really cool about feedback loops is they're not just some theory you learn in a class. It's how real-world software gets built, refined, constantly improved.
Okay, so let's make sure we're all on the same page. What exactly is a feedback loop in the world of coding? The article lays it out as this constant cycle. Write code, test it like crazy, see what happens, tweak it, and then just keep doing that.
Exactly. It's like you're always going back and forth, making the code a little better each time.
And the article really hammers this point home. Mastering this feedback loop thing, it's like the secret weapon for learning to code faster. Less time bashing your head against those bugs, more time actually making progress.
Makes sense, right? Whether you're prepping for a coding interview, working on a big project, or just building something cool on your own, knowing how to use feedback loops effectively, that's what separates the good from the truly great coders.
Absolutely. So we get why it's important, but how do we actually do this feedback loop thing? The Algo Academy blog gives us 7 solid tips, and a few really jumped out at me. 1, setting crystal clear goals before you even write a line of code. Sounds basic, but I know I've been guilty of just diving in without a plan.
Oh yeah, that's like starting a road trip with no idea where you're going. You might end up somewhere, but chances are it won't be where you wanted to be.
Right. Another one that hit home was writing what they call testable code. Basically, break your solution down into smaller, more manageable pieces that you can actually test easily.
Definitely. And that's where these automated testing tools come in. Things like unit tests. It's like having the safety net catching those bugs before they turn into major headaches.
Like a little robot buddy double-checking your work.
There.
And you mentioned earlier that these tips, they're not just some nice theory, they're like industry standard, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is how the pros, the best companies out there, build software that actually works reliably. So knowing this stuff can seriously boost your skills and make you a much more valuable coder.
All right, so mastering these core feedback loop techniques can definitely give you a big advantage. But the article goes even further, digging into some really cool advanced stuff. One that caught my eye was A/B testing. Sounds kind of like a science experiment for your code.
It kind of is. Imagine you've built an online store.
Hmm.
With A/B testing, you create two versions of a page, maybe with different layouts or buttons, and then you actually track which one gets more people to buy stuff.
Wow. So you're using data to make your code work smarter, not just harder. Then there's this technique called fuzzing, and honestly, it sounds a little wild.
Fuzzing is like you're purposely trying to break your code, but in a good way. You throw all kinds of crazy data at it, unexpected stuff, even things that shouldn't work, just to see how your code handles it. Like a stress test to uncover any hidden weaknesses.
Like trying to break it to make sure it's unbreakable. I can see how these advanced techniques take feedback loops to a whole new level.
Definitely. It gets you thinking beyond just making your code function. You start anticipating problems before they even pop up.
Awesome. So far, we've covered a lot, from the basics of feedback loops to those advanced techniques like A/B testing and fuzzing. But let's be real for a second. This all sounds great in theory, but putting it into practice, actually using feedback loops, it can be tough sometimes, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. There are definitely challenges, and the article doesn't shy away from them.
Okay, good. So in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore some of those challenges and figure out how to overcome them. Stay tuned.
Sounds good.
All right, so we're back, diving deeper into feedback loops. One thing that really stuck with me from that Algo Academy blog article, it's this idea of finding the balance between aiming for perfection and actually getting stuff done.
Yeah, I get that. It's easy to get caught up in the details, wanting to make everything perfect, and then you end up never actually finishing anything.
Totally.
The article mentioned this concept, a minimum viable product, or MVP.
MVP.
Yeah, basically, instead of trying to build the ultimate version right from the start, you focus on getting those core features working first, and then you improve it based on feedback.
So it's like get something out there that works, even if it's not perfect, and then make it better as you go.
Exactly. It's like launching a rocket. You get it into space, and then you make course corrections along the way.
Makes sense. The article also talks about how we can use feedback loops in our long-term learning journey as coders. They suggest creating like a personal learning roadmap.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like having your own personalized syllabus for, your coding education.
So you're mapping out the skills you want to learn, the tech you want to master, the kind of projects you want to work on,
Exactly.
and then using feedback loops to check your progress, see where you need to improve, and maybe adjust your plan as you go.
Yeah, I like that. Keeps you focused, motivated, and from getting lost in that huge ocean of coding knowledge out there. To really solidify your skills, they recommend building a portfolio of iterative projects.
Iterative projects, so.
Not just finishing a tutorial and moving on, but actually coming back to your previous work, making it better based on what you've learned.
So it's like taking that first draft of a story and then revising it, editing it, making it shine.
Exactly. Each time you revisit a project, your code gets better, and you get better as a developer. Now, to get some experience working with feedback loops, but like in a real-world setting, the article suggests contributing to open source projects.
Open source, that's a great idea. You get to work with experienced developers, get feedback on your code, and contribute to projects that people actually use.
Yeah, it's a chance to learn from the best, see how feedback loops work in practice, and even make a real impact. And finally, they recommend teaching others.
Oh yeah, you know what they say. The best way to learn something is to teach it.
Right. When you have to explain something to someone else, it forces you to understand it on a whole different level.
Absolutely. You have to think about it from different angles, answer their questions, and it really clarifies your own thinking.
Makes sense. And hey, you might even inspire someone else to get into coding. What I really appreciate about this whole article is that they're not just presenting feedback loops as some technical skill, it's like a mindset, a way of approaching learning and problem solving that goes way beyond coding.
Yeah, it's about that growth mindset, being open to feedback, embracing challenges. That kind of thinking can benefit you in all parts of your life.
It's like a superpower. But like any superpower, there are challenges to mastering it. So, in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore some of those challenges and how to deal with them. Okay, so final part of our deep dive here. We've talked about how to use feedback loops, how to make them part of your coding journey long term. But there's this thing that we kind of have to talk about. It can be tough, even when you really want to use this whole feedback loop idea.
Yeah, I think what trips people up sometimes is they focus so much on the technical side of it, they forget about the human element.
Right, because at the end of the day, it's people writing the code, testing it, figuring out what the results mean. And people, well, we've got feelings, doubts, all that stuff.
Exactly. Especially in tech, where things change so fast. There's always something new to learn. It's easy to feel like you're not good enough, like everyone else is ahead of you.
Yeah, that imposter syndrome thing. I think a lot of people in tech struggle with that.
But that's where feedback loops can actually help, I think. When you embrace this idea of always learning, always improving, you're kind of admitting that you're not perfect. And that's okay.
It's like giving yourself permission to not know everything, to be a work in progress.
It is. You celebrate the small wins, you learn from the mistakes, and you just keep moving forward.
So how can people listening take this whole feedback loop thing beyond just coding, apply it to other parts of their lives?
The big thing is, feedback loops are more than just some technique. It's a way of thinking.
Okay, yeah.
Being open to feedback, seeing challenges as opportunities to grow, that can apply to anything. Learning a language, getting better at cooking, even personal growth, relationships.
Wow, so it's like a framework for improving no matter what you're doing.
It is. So as you go through your day, think about how you can use these feedback loop principles. Don't be afraid to try things, make mistakes, learn from them.
Keep those loops spinning.
Exactly.
All right, that wraps up our deep dive into feedback loops. Hopefully you got some good insights, some inspiration to take with you. And hey, keep those loops spinning. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the deep dive.